April 2nd, 2024. Dear Diary, today I took a special tour group around the island. It was made up of golden ticket winners from all over the world. The board hand-selected them based on some weirdo criteria only they know or understand. I might be the head of tourism, but I'm nowhere close to the inner circle and don't want to be a part of it. I've seen Evangelion. Actually, I have Baka's traumatized memories from watching it. Ugh. It's my cross to bear, one of them. What I'm saying is I know better than to get too close to a secretive ruling council. And they've been more secretive than normal since sending Baka, Jimmy, and Kaguya on their world tour. Not that I miss them, especially Baka. Nope. I wonder if they know the board kind of canceled Baka's show. So this group of about a dozen people ranging in age from little kid to old geezer met me at the tourism center. Part of their prize pack was a guided tour with me. Because I'm the island's best tour guide ever, I miss it so much sometimes. I had 4 people from Japan, 3 from Asian countries, 2 from the United States, 2 Germans, and 1 Italian. There was supposed to be a 13th member, someone named Fausta Bevan, but she didn't show up. Then. The itinerary was the same as the usual guided tour, but with 2 special additions. First, they'd be allowed into Monarch Outpost 83, and under the supervision of Ricky Becker, the island's zookeeper, touch a few kaiju. Ricky called to the monsters with a newfangled orca the Monarch scientists used to attract and deter the creatures for study. Thankfully, he didn't call any kaiju who might have been radioactive or disease-ridden. Who came? Sanda, of course. Unlike his brother, the big hairy lug likes the tourists, especially kids, which is why people love him despite him smelling like a wet dog. I dared everyone to snatch any of the gargantua's loose hairs as souvenirs, and at least half of them did it. I had to grab the 10-year-old American boy by his belt to keep him from falling over the railing when he tried. Who thought it was smart to let him come without parental supervision? I can't be everyone's mom. We were all disappointed the Mothers had migrated to Infant Island for a few months, especially me. She's so fluffy I'm gonna die! You haven't lived until you pet a fuzzy Mothra. At least Mimo stayed with me. But the kids insisted on trying to call a Mothra, so Ricky humored them and attracted a Leporax. Yeesh! He's no Mothra, but he's still nicer than Batra. Finally, Ricky managed to call the recently returned Yongari. The original, Double G, as Baka likes to call him, is still at large in South Korea. The German tourists yelled, Godzilla! When they saw him, which cracked me up. It didn't help that when Ricky played Surfin' USA by the Beach Boys, Yongari did the Shie dance. Then the Germans exclaimed, Hand of Doom! Hand of Doom! If I hadn't listened to Baka's episode about this monster, for research purposes, I swear, I might have called security. The last thing the island needs is more freaky cult members showing up. I've appreciated how quiet the Nachfalter and his bug ladies have been for months. Which reminds me that Baka emailed me this morning, warning that the Church of Mothrianity might attack because Mothra was in Godzilla x Kong. Is the X silent? He's convinced that they only attack when he covers a movie with Mothra in it. Supervillains love their gimmicks and patterns, he says. I think he inflates his importance. Why would anyone in Rolisica listen to his podcast? Speaking of that new Godzilla and Kong movie, this special tour ended with a trip to the Denham Theater to see it. These tourists were given tickets that got them an 8th Wonder combo, which included a ticket, a popcorn bucket shaped like Godzilla's mouth filled with pink popcorn, yum, and a large Kong cup with a straw that looks like his axe. These were available exclusively at the Denham, so collectors are going crazier than Mimo on a sugar rush for them. Our little tour bus pulled up to the Denham. The door opened, and everyone, especially the kids, ran out, almost trampling each other. I was a bit annoyed because I was supposed to be first to exit, but instead, I was the last. I'd never admit this to anyone, except maybe Mimo. But my feet hurt from all the walking in my 2-inch heels, so I was okay with sitting for a minute as the parents wrangled their kids. I hoped against hope that my cute little black business dress wasn't stained by sweat. It was practically an Indiana summer on Ogasawara today. OMG, laundry is hard. It didn't help that I was wearing my blue wig today. It's the hottest one, in more ways than one. Sometimes keeping a low profile is so difficult. As I walked out of the bus, I called, "All right, monster kids, let's go to the movies," and motioned for them to follow me. I heard lots of excited talk in several languages behind me. But just as we reached the doors, I heard a husky, feminine voice yell, "Wait for me!" I turned around and saw a short, chubby girl wearing a Monster Island t-shirt that was at least one size too big and baggy knee-length khaki shorts running toward us. Her stride wasn't helped by flip-flops that clapped against her feet. My eyes widened when I realized she wasn't even trying to stop until she tackled me. Gallons of sweat splashed all over me. Dress ruined. The reek of her BO assaulted my nose and, worse yet, flooded my mouth. Between that and her hitting me in the stomach, I nearly hurled. "Yuck! Get off of me!" I yelled, shoving her. The girl stumbled back. "Sorry," she said. "I don't run much, and it's hard to put the brakes on when I do." I scoffed. "Then maybe you shouldn't be running." The girl gasped. The tourist glared at me in shock. My shoulders slumped under the weight of my rudeness. "I'm sorry," I said. "Why were you running at me, us?" She replied, "I'm one of the golden ticket tourists picked for this tour. My name's Fausta Bevan." My lips dragged themselves into a professional smile, but I thought, oh, good grief, couldn't this girl have bothered with some basic hygiene? This tour can't end fast enough. I opened the door and motioned for the tourists to enter the theater. A few of them shot me dirty looks as they passed me. That professional smile was dented each time. One more would have shattered it. I thought Fausta would have been one of them, but she looked at me with suspicion and not disgust. So weird, I thought. I entered the door and ran to the front of the group. As I did, a pair of EDF mutant guards walked past with a handcuffed, smirking teenage boy. We all glanced at them as they passed us. What happened? I wondered. I shrugged and then escorted my group to the front counter to collect our tickets. But the handsome Japanese clerk told me, "We need to move you and your group to a different IMAX theater." "Huh? Why?" I asked. He pointed over my shoulder and said, "Did you see the kid with the mutants?" I nodded. "He planted a stink bomb in a trash can in the theater. It smells horrible in there." "Ew. Why would he do that?" "I think he's a hetero fan." "Oh, one of those." "Hey!" exclaimed Fausta behind me. "Be nice to the smoggies." "Smoggies?" I said, looking over my shoulder at her. "You know, hetero fans," she replied nervously. "Because his nickname is the Smog Monster?" Everyone in the group stared at her. "Save the Earth," she sang awkwardly, pumping a fist. I rolled my eyes and sighed, but my smile returned when I looked back at the handsome clerk. "That's fine." I glanced at his name tag. "Takeshi. We'll go to the next available showing in the other IMAX." He tapped a few buttons on the cash register and said, "I reserved your new seats." I laughed flirtatiously. "Thanks, Takeshi." The same name as the first Kamen Rider. I thought, even better. I took a business card and pen out of my purse, jotted my phone number on the card, and handed it to Takeshi. "Call me sometime." But he nonchalantly ripped the card in half and dropped the pieces on the floor, the jerk. "I have a girlfriend." "Oh," I said with a nervous laugh. "Sorry." A few of the tourists in my group snickered. It made my cheeks burn so hot, the sweat could have evaporated on contact. "The show starts in 20 minutes, Takeshi said, pointing toward the theater. He handed me an extra-large cup with a Godzilla face for a lid and a neon blue straw. "Here's your collector cup. Enjoy the show." Bro, really? I thought, snatching the cup. Embarrassing me in front of my tour group? I looked away and started walking toward the theater. Everyone in my tour group got their collector items and followed me. I took a deep breath to calm myself. At least Mimo loves me. "Hey," said Fausta as she walked up beside me. "I know how you feel. Boys turn me down all the time." With good reason, I thought, almost holding my breath to avoid smelling her. But smiling professionally again, I said, "Sure, thanks." As we rounded a corner, a black family with 2 little kids, a boy and a girl, walked past us. "Mom!" the boy exclaimed. I left my Godzilla cup in the theater. We can't go back in there, replied the mother. It smells bad. But I want my Godzilla cup, he cried, tears forming in his eyes. Why does she get to keep hers? He added, pointing at his sister, who clutched her cup more tightly. I assume they didn't drop hers when they evacuated after the stink bomb exploded. We'll get you another one, said the mom. I know they couldn't because the Denham only allowed one per customer. But before I could tell them that, Fausta ran toward them. The whole family flinched and covered their noses. Mom, she smells nasty, said the little boy. Fausta lilted but said, I'm sorry. Then she handed the boy her cup. Here, you can have mine. The boy's eyes widened. Really? Fausta nodded. Yippee! Shouted the boy, snatching the cup. The parents smiled at Fausta, the mother mouthing, thank you, and kept walking. When Fausta caught back up with my group, I said, that was nice of you. I know what it's like to lose something you like as a kid, she replied. Besides, I like Mothra more. Really? So do I said. Fausta gasped. Mothra sisters, she exclaimed, hugging me. I cringed as my body tensed. Fausta must have felt that because she backed off and raised her hand saying, sorry. We all walked into the theater and found our seats, which were perfectly situated in the middle section so the huge screens filled our vision. Despite the screening selling out, there was a one-seat gap between everyone and Fausta. Her face looked both sad and enraged by that. It constantly switched. I felt a little bad not sitting next to her, but the smell, ugh. The movie was a great distraction when it started, especially since Baka wasn't there to annoy me. Although part of me missed him. I'll never admit that. I sipped on my soda the whole time, finishing it about halfway into the movie. Kong and Suko were cute together, and Godzilla almost made me want to buy a cat, but I waited for what felt like forever to see Mothra. They teased her with some hieroglyphics, but when Gia, such a lovely girl IRL, reached into the light at the top of the temple and the queen of the monsters appeared, I was so excited. My bladder demanded a bathroom break. This is what I get for finishing my drink too fast, I thought. As much as I hated it, I slipped past a few of my tourists and a couple of strangers to hurry out of the theater and run to the women's room. After a quick tinkle, I was washing my hands when I heard a thunderous thud. For a second, I stood there wide-eyed as water poured over my hands. Then I heard people screaming. I ran out the door and got smacked by a reeking stench. I staggered back and propped myself against the wall. Only when I took a deep breath and covered my nose could I stand straight. To my surprise, I saw Takeshi bravely and handsomely trying to direct the panicking crowd. I stumbled toward him, bumping into several runners who nearly bulldozed me and tapped him on the shoulder. What happened? I asked. Coughing, he covered his nose and said, I think someone set off another stink bomb in that theater. But this one is even worse. Some people got so sick they passed out. My superheroine instincts kept yelling in my head against my better judgment, so I said, people from my tour group might still be in there. I have to help them. Your funeral, Takeshi said. How rude, I thought. Couldn't he say good luck or I'll help you? Jeez, I don't even like him anymore. I pinched my nose and ran through the auditorium entrance, dashing down the hallway and around the corner as the loud sound from the movie still played, but it may as well have been silence at that moment. I suddenly found giant white spheres the size of volleyballs stuck to the wall, screen, floor, and chairs. What scared me most was I nearly tripped on what I hoped was an unconscious body with a pool of vomit next to his face. It was one of several that I saw in the room, on the floor, or draped over seats. I gripped my nose tighter to keep that foul smell out. Standing in the center aisle was a short figure with huge, moth-like wings and pale skin. I clenched my fist and knew immediately what I was dealing with. Hey, bug lady! I yelled, my voice clogged by my pinched nose. The villainess turned around and I flinched. Fausta? I whispered. Get out of here now, she yelled, pointing a stubby finger at me as her eyes flashed like headlights. And tell Crystal Lady Mothball demands her attention. She gestured toward the wall with an open hand and with a sweeping motion ripped 3 white spheres off of it and launched them at me like bullets. I gasped, spun around, and ran back to the hallway, jumping over the unconscious guy like a hurdle. All 3 spheres splattered, that's how it sounded anyway, against the wall after missing me by a few inches. I didn't stop running until I reached the poster in the center of the hallway in front of the entrance. I panted, ingesting foul fumes, but I didn't care because I needed air. Straightening, I held up my pointer finger and said, "This is a job for Crystal Lady." I cringed at letting such a dorky baka-ism fly out of my mouth. Sometimes I hate it so much that I'm his cloned twin sister, but I had no time to be disappointed with myself. I didn't even have time to call Mimo for help. I tapped my crystal moth barrette and raised my hand overhead, crying, "Shine, Crystal Lady!" Closing my eyes, I tucked in my arms as a crystalline cocoon formed around me. I was nestled in its tingly, electrifying warmth for a few seconds before exploding from it, the glass-like shards vaporizing. My blue and yellow armor-like costume, with its pretty moth-like patterns, always made me feel both beautiful and powerful. Flickers of light from the tiny crystals in my naturally blonde hair and my blue crystal moth choker speckled the wall. I made a quick adjustment to my antennae tiara to make sure it was straight, flourished my mighty wand, and dashed down the hallway. Other than grimacing slightly from the stench as I rounded the corner, it was a perfect entrance. "Your wish is my command," I bellowed heroically as I entered the auditorium. Mothball turned and glared at me. Pointing at her with my wand, I continued my improvised speech. "How dare you ruin these tourists' day at the movies with your odious odor? They paid a fortune to see their favorite kaiju on the big screen on the world's premier megafauna attraction. Good grief, I slipped into my tour guide mode while speechifying. So with Mothra's blessing, I will smite you." Mothball flailed her clenched fists as she scoffed. "You hate my foul pheromone? So did the master." She practically growled as she motioned upward, summoning several white spheres off the floor, and then thrust her hands, shooting them at me. As she did this, I spun my wand in a circular motion and cried, "Luminous Crystal Moth Shield!" An energy barrier formed within the outline drawn in the air by my wand half a second before the first white sphere splattered against it. 2 others shot past me on either side, and I heard them smash into the wall behind me, although I barely heard it over the explosions thundering from the speakers as the movie kept playing. I caught a glimpse of Mothra fighting giant apes in the corner of my eye, and I was annoyed that I couldn't sit down and watch it. But 2 more spheres hit my shield, shattering it, and I instinctively held up my free arm to block the projectile, which splattered half on my glittery gauntlet and half on my bare arm. A cold sweat gushed from my every pore as blood drained from my face. My legs buckled. I clutched my churning stomach and fought violent retching. I glanced up and saw Mothball stomping toward me. "Get up, Jess," I thought. "Get up!" I lurched as bile jumped into my mouth. "I have that effect on people," said Mothball. "It's no wonder I came out like this after the master put me in the cocoon." "A cocoon?" I whispered. She kept monologuing. "I always wanted to be pretty, and he promised me when I joined the church that he would make me beautiful." She stood over me and motioned up and down her plump body and face, which had splotches as brown as the patterns on her wings. "But look at me! I'm uglier than ever. But I know I wasn't cooked long enough. If I kill you, the master will finally be pleased with me and let me use the cocoon again. Then at last I'll be pretty." "Nachfalter, you fiend," I thought. "What have you done to this girl?" I forced myself to gulp bile and look up at Mothball. "No, Fausta. It doesn't matter how you look," I said. "Your beauty comes from your spirit, your kindness, determination, and love. Don't let the Nachfalter use you like this." Mothball kicked me in the stomach, surging the bile back into my throat. "The master doesn't even know I'm here." Between labored breaths, I said, You came here on your own?" "Yes." "You have a chance to escape. He won't miss you." She kicked me again. "Shut up and die already." Gritting my teeth and clutching my wand, I said, "Not today, Mothball." I jabbed my wand into her gut and surged enough energy through it to repulse her at least 6 feet. As she staggered, I forced myself to stand and zapped the sphere on my arm with my wand, turning it to dust. Mothball shot another one at me with a gesture, but I intercepted it with a swat of my wand. It got stuck to it, so I charged my wand to dust it. Then I aimed my glowing and crackling mystic weapon at the poor girl. "Please," I pleaded, tears stinging my eyes. "Don't make me do this!" For a moment, Mothball, Fausta, stood there, her head hung, her eyes hidden by her greasy hair. Techno music blared from the speakers as the credits for the movie played. Finally, as she looked up with eyes full of fiery rage, a dozen spheres floated off the floor and hovered around her like planets. What a lovely death! She thrust her hands forward to launch the spheres. "Lightning laser!" I blurted. An electrified beam shot from my wand. Spheres flew past me or splattered on the floor around me. The movie ended. Silence fell over the auditorium. There was a pile of dust where Fausta once stood. The stench started to dissipate from the air. No premature gloating message from the Nachfalter broke into every media device. I lowered my wand and wiped the tears from my eyes. When I revealed myself as Crystal Lady a few years ago to defeat those alien sisters who wanted to eat Gamera, I told Baka, I'm no killer. But since then, I've destroyed every bug lady the Nachfalter sent to the island. I told myself they were irredeemable monsters so I could sleep at night. But now I know they used to be people. Girls like me. Girls with vulnerabilities that fiend exploited. At least Fausta was. She didn't have to do this, and I didn't have to destroy her. This is what my nemesis does to the lost souls in his so-called church. I pray Fausta is finally beautiful.
What a Stinker! The Ugly Truth About Mothball. Written by Nathan Marchand. Read and performed by Sarah Marchand. Directed, produced, and edited by Nathan Marchand. Featuring the instrumental music track for She's Got the Power by Stan Bush. Our story segments were made possible by the generous MIFV Max members on Patreon, including executive producer Damon Noyes. This is a fan production and no copyright infringement is intended or implied. All characters, video clips, and audio clips belong to their respective copyright holders. MIFV is a Moonlighting Ninjas media production and a proud member of Pod Nation. Thank you for listening. Next time, Crystal Lady faces another rogue nemesis in I Am the Moth, a Bug Lady Psychedelic Revenge.